We have a new commission and it's a beaut.
What is it?
We've been hired to poll the public for the candidate so he can know what kind of platform to run on.
How about a treadmill?
Close. But we need something a little more stable for our dark hearts. We need a sparkler that will set the Christmas tree on fire. So we're actually going to ask the public and see what it thinks.
A novel approach. And it may have some merit. But how are we going to do that?
This is how. Meet Clarence, the perfect Mr. Average. He's going to be our sounding board.
Him?
He's all we need. Clarence represents the typical voter and he likes our man. Now the non-typical voters probably won't vote, at least not all of them. And we can safely presume that a good third of the ballots, or a sixth of the total, is underage, not just uninterested or undetermined. This shows that of the remaining 2/6, 1/4 will be infirm or unable to reach the polls because they'll be out of town buying broccoli, and another quarter, constituting the now 1/2, or another sixth in all, will reach the polls too late and become discouraged inasmuch as rain is 1/3 likely to occur. This means that Clarence represents half the voting public and will vote our way, and only 1/6 will be in opposition.
Who knew? I've got to admit, 100% of the straw vote is pretty good stuff. But don't we need a bigger sample?
What a waste that would be. The point of a poll is to stop it when it reaches your preconceived conclusion. And Clarence here has already declared his support for our candidate. This bright young man is typical of all typical types and represents the voting public, our beloved constituency. We can take the pulse of the public by taking a poll of this lad's thoughts.
With what? A microscope?
If we're going to grab the brass ring on this merry-go-round, we need a new approach. We have to act like pioneers and rediscover America. The tall cairn, the square pegs, the empty vistas of TV. We as true patriots and blue-blooded boys of the red, white, and true have got to put a bloom on our candidate. We have to sell our man.
Why? We just got him and he hasn't hardly been used yet. Besides, isn't it still against the law to buy, sell, or allow to be consumed on the premises anybody that's actually a citizen of these United States?
I don't mean we gotta sell him. I mean we have to sell him. We gotta run with the ball and put our boy across the line. Knock him over the fence for a bases-loaded beer barrel blast. Blow a note of the purest, genuine, unsimulated gold. A note that will fire the thirsty blood of a buying public and arouse the hunger in 300 million humble hearts. Flame the passions of the common man on the street. And since Clarence here is about as common as the common man can get, all we need do is query him as a cross-section of the public. Hey, I don't know about that. I'm actually pretty mellow.
Has anyone ever asked you to be the voice of the public before?
No, but if they had, I would have looked him straight in the eye and I would have said, let me think it over.
Now, that's the kind of commitment I can wrap my teeth around.
Right, J.M. We're going to have to grab the cow by the bell if we're going to ring in a new year. Clarence, we're looking for you to give us the answers we need on the candidate's position on his platform. How about upright and erect?
No. We mean his position on policy matters.
How am I supposed to know what his position is? Shouldn't you be asking him? How is the candidate supposed to know what you think? You, as a typical voter, represent the voting nature of the great American public, and it's up to you to let the candidate know what to think. It's your public duty to state your opinion, and a public duty is a public trust. Well, if it's my duty. Now bear in mind that all of your answers in the poll are mere opinion. My opinion couldn't cut stale mustard.
Be that as it may, if we're going to milk this giraffe, you need to be as forthright as a groundhog on St. Patrick's Day. Now, our first question is, what would you like to see done about foreign policy?
I'd like to see it continue.
In other words, you'd like to see them go right ahead with foreign policy?
Yes, I'd like to see it move right along.
What you mean is that you'd be in favor of keeping going with a foreign policy?
Yes, I don't think it should stop. What he's trying to say is that he thinks foreign policy should continue.
In other words, he'd like to see them go right ahead with it.
Yes, it ought to move right along.
So, the answer to our first question is that you'd be in favor of plenty of foreign policy.
Lots of it. To put it another way, you're strong for a good deal of foreign policy. Yes, foreign policy is one of my favorites. To boil it down, you're saying that you can't have too much foreign policy? If we have any left over, we could export it and make a buck.
Actually, what he's getting at is that he's in favor of lots of foreign policy.
Basically, he really means he's for plenty of it.
Or, like you said, we can't have too much.
Now our next question is, what grade of foreign policy are you in favor of? I figure foreign policy is like when you buy insurance on a steamboat accident in Patagonia. Then if you're killed in a steamboat accident in Patagonia, you're fixed for life. Now that's a good foreign policy. You don't expect us to squeeze a big answer like that into our poll questionnaire, do you? Make it short. Very well then. My answer is no.
Well, that's nice and short, all right, but it doesn't answer the question.
Doesn't make any difference. If it's a space, we got to a T. No, it doesn't have a T.
Do you realize that with the answers and conclusions that we have here, all we have to do is dream up a set of questions, and we can prove practically anything?
Well, you did ask some great questions. No, I'm afraid we're going to have to throw those questions out. They're just not up to the caliber of your replies. We're going to make up a new set of questions to go with your answers to take the guess out of guesswork. Why?
Well, suppose somebody was to ask the candidate a question. Using our reports, he won't fumble the ball, and he'll quickly reply, well, basing the September results on 2/3 of the national soybean output, the results would indicate that there is room for doubt.
What if the candidate actually has an opinion? Are you trying to tell us that figures lie? You trying to buck a trend? Scuttle the sentiments of a nation? Sorry? This candidate's running because the country needs him. Needs him for what? For president and for vice. Wow! So am I! And I have been for years. What a slogan!
You know, FD, this big splash of yours, the president's for vice, has raised 1,000 ripples of thought. Now here's a handful of corn that I toss out to see if a bird of paradise will give it a passing peck. I'm rifling this into the dark into an off-season shooting gallery, mind you, but it has a chance of ringing the old bell, and we may win a Cupid doll with this. And I'm not going to fancy this nugget up with a Sunday suit. I'll toss it into the fire raw and see if it spits back. See if it simmers into a broth of oh boy, or if it curls up its tail and withers on the grapevine. Before we go over the polls again, let me haul a couple of bananas out of the refrigerator and see if they're ripe.
Right. If we're going to fish these waters, we need to see how deep the submarine will go. And if we're going to take a pair out, we need to make sure it beats two of a kind.
If we want our candidate to capture the top seat on the cupola, we've got to make our campaign foolproof. We've got to take the hiccups out of the recipe.
Every diamond must be 24-karat gold.
Right. The pure and driven honesty in a lovely woman's eyes must grace our every nugget of thought. In short, we got to take the bamboozle out of any whammy we conjure up for the public.
You mean we ought to be truthful, frank, fearless, loyal to our trust?
Yes. But how? It's so new, the public's not ready. What we must do, and I spawn this salmon egg downstream, hoping it will leap up over the falls to the happy hunting grounds. We must take the truth by the horns.
A dilemma for sure.
Right, FD. We're standing with our feet buttered in a pool of ball bearings. One man's truth is another man's cold broccoli. We've got to make the truth tasty. Tasty to all. All the old leftovers. Our candidate is loyal. Our candidate is righteous. Our candidate is upstanding. They're no better than cold peanut butter on mashed potatoes.
You're right. Rummaging through the icebox for stale sterling don't cut no notches on the water pistol. What we have to do is make our candidate look good and the others look bad. You could keep them out of sight. We've got to use the old savvy, the know-how, the moxie, the mother wit. Ars gratia artis. Cavia emptor, ars salare art.
I'm behind you 100%, FD. What about you, Clarence?
I'm behind him about 1.5 miles. What did he say, anyway?
Who cares? It was in Latin. And that's good enough for me. What's wrong?
Nothing. I was just wondering what language the Romans used for the old 14-karat bamboozle. What we need, and you'd better look at this bomb through dark glasses, we need a new truth. Something with a little jazz on it. Even if we have to make it up.
Right. This campaign needs a new and flashy truth. A blast around the moon. Color, pageantry, romance.
Romance? How about if he was to marry into royalty?
Not bad, but who's available?
How about our secretary Lulabelle? I hear she's French royalty. Does that surprise you, Clarence?
Somehow I don't think it surprises me half as much as it's going to surprise Ms. Lulabelle.
This is a peacock egg, and we've got to watch over it carefully so as not to hatch out a vulture.
Clarence, we want to know how the public will respond to the candidate marrying a French noblewoman.
Does he speak French?
No, but his wife will.
Oh, well, that's okay then. At least you'll have somebody to talk to.
So, Clarence, as a good low common denominator, how would you feel about it?
Oh, I couldn't marry her. I don't speak French. Suppose I was asked her to pass the artichokes. Who knows what I'd get? Besides, I don't like artichokes.
No, you've got it wrong. We want our candidate to marry our Secretary Lulabelle, the lost Dauphine of France. We feel the White House could use a little royal blood.
Well, as long as you don't get any of it on the carpet, why not?
I can see this bonanza blooming like a rose bush in Holland. Our candidate marries French royalty on the threshold of the presidency.
Now, Clarence, as our lowest common denominator, how do you feel about the candidate marrying Lulabelle?
Why not ask him yourself?
How would he know how you feel about it?
Oh, gosh. I guess it is up to me, isn't it?
Right. Us poll takers have to have an unbiased, unprejudiced opinion here. The candidate's thoughts on the subject would be suspect by everybody in the country. Figuring again that Clarence constitutes the entire student body of his high school graduating class, that would mean that everybody over 40 is in favor, or at least won't stand in the way, unless a monsoon spoils the cauliflower festival. Which indicates that folks under that age group will be influenced by majority drift factors brought about by medium-high tides, in which the lunar solstice, which if multiplied by expected tax fluctuations would be quantum high to the quotient parenthetic and penultimate consequentials. This in turn, when subtracted from take-home pay, presupposes that Terre Haute will lead the National League in batting next year. It's almost enough to make a man stop and think. Say, where do you think I should insert the comma?
Why don't you just shove it up your cue the music?